if we start to look towards the horizon and what might, the future of this stuff might look like, what kind of things are we seeing emerge there in that realm of optimization and improving our marketing effectiveness? Cathal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as everything, it's all AI and search generative experiences and all these things. So what I think, and this is where I keep using this word human. So like the human use of a website is I'm using it to complete a task. And that's what GA4 is set up to measure. I am going to use a website as a utility. I'm going to press a button. I'm going to watch a video. I'm going to do something. But ultimately, I'm using it as utility. So what GA4 tends to do is record how humans use websites. Now, the next generation of marketing is going to be, to my mind, a humanization of marketing. So we're using all of our faculties and all of our senses to do things like search. So with search, it would have been an input to get a result. So a text input to get a result. That was our single input, was a text input. Our next inputs will be things like, I'm going to circle this picture, or I'm going to point at something, or I'm going to use my voice. It's all of our human attributes that we're going to use. So the inputs are changing. The inputs are changing from those simple, straightforward text kind of inputs to a point or a look or like something you vocalize. So the measurement of that is going to be tricky, I have to say. I think that, we're going to see some very interesting developments in these kind of linked products, which Chris has talked about, like Google Search Console or Google Ads, because they're ultimately on the front line in terms of collecting that first party interactions with Google. So SGE will be measured through Search Console. The new AI-powered Google Ads will be measured obviously through Google Ads. Those integrations will then therefore have to feed back into GA4 and present what those inputs actually look like. So how are people searching? How are people using YouTube? How are people using the search engine?
But it's tricky, that, isn't it? Because if you're optimizing in this sort of very old traditional world, you buy against some keywords. Well, you can optimize for the keywords that perform better, and the more you put that in the hands of AI, then the more you have to put the optimization in its hands as well, because you don't really know what you're optimizing against anyway. You just say you started off by just handing over your money and saying do your thing. So is it just sort of where? Does that just lead to giving up, just basically passing off far more of that work to AI? Do you think that will happen quickly over the next year or two?
Yes and no, depends on how people are using it. So, like all these things take time to kind of get a foothold in the consumer sphere. So, for example, like with ChatGPT, it sent everyone into tailspin when it was launched, but Bing still only has 5% market share. So it takes a while for these things to really kind of ground themselves in the customer psyche. So how are people using these? So I do think that AI will, for a while, do a bit of the heavy lifting for those kind of early adopters. And that's what we'll use as our test case. And then we'll have a better roadmap for what's coming next. But the majority of people are probably not going to be doing all the supercharged things that the SGE and all the kind of AI-powered technology can do in any time soon. So
yeah, sure,
before we see it happen.
Chris, what do you think the future of measurement and insight and optimization look like in marketing?
I think we'll see scalability through AI for sure. So, I mean, at MP Digital, what we're going to be exploring this year is using AI to help us evaluate optimizations and decision making. So, the SMB division of MP Digital and Accel, we have 500 clients. So the biggest challenge in terms of revenue opportunity for us, and just making sure that we're servicing the clients the way that we would service an enterprise client, is essentially having either scalability or more people. So I evaluate, I kind of see the idea of AI taking over on that scalability. I mean, I just hired an AI person on our team that will be starting in about 2 weeks. And our goal to come in is, I was like, I'd like you to evaluate paid media opportunities, use AI to make actionable insights. You take that optimization, take that data, and see if AI can do the same thing that our analysts are doing. So we're going to do a side by side comparison.
What kind of tools are you is she likely to deploy, do you think?
Oh, Lord knows. I mean,
That's her job.
yeah. Well, I started looking at, I'm not an AI person. I love the concept of it, but like my Python skills are at best like mediocre compared to my team members. Thank God they're good. But yeah, we can script in Python to create automation and evaluate the data that's coming through. So she gave me about 30 platforms that she's decent in. I'm quite sure she's a human computer at this point. But some things I'd never even heard of. And she's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. When we were doing these data science operations, we were doing blah, blah, blah. And I was using this platform. I'm Googling this platform as we speak. I've never heard of it. And I was like, this is incredible. So I imagine that we're going to go into, each of these platforms and kind of evaluate how they work. We work really close with our legal team, because the big concern about AI is privacy and just making sure that, like, while we're utilizing the platform, we don't want to release client information by putting their data into a platform. Some of them have in their terms, like, when you create an input, when you put anything into our data platform, it becomes open source data. So we're really cognizant of that. We're very careful about it. So I know that our legal team's just coming out with our AI initiative, what we can and can't use, how we can and can't use it, and what we're going to do. That will be the limitation, I think, for AI. In addition to what Cathal saying, privacy obviously being the biggest concern. There's going to be legal precedent making sure what can and can't be used and how it can and can't be used. And we'll be on top of that. We have an amazing attorney that was a computer science engineer and went from making video games to being a lawyer. So love his input. Looking forward to seeing what we do with that. But I'm hoping that AI is careful to protect users' data so we can utilize it better on our end.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Cathal? What do you see? How do you see AI helping us in the analysis? Are you using like ChatGPT's data analysis functionality much practically?
So, great. I actually see it as a sounding board, and I'll explain it like this. So did you ever have a problem you're trying to solve and you ask someone and you say it out loud and then you solve your own problem? Through the kind of layered prompting of things like ChatGPT and other chat-based stuff, you can have those eureka moments. Like you are Archimedes jumping out of the bath and running down the street of Athens going, Eureka, I'm after coming up with this amazing solution here. So what AI allows you to do is use it as a sounding board. Now, this is not something a lot of people are kind of talking about. They're kind of, they're going on journeys and they're kind of coming to the expected solution. But what about the unexpected solution? And this is what I'm most interested in when it comes to AI, because unlike your colleagues who want to finish work at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock on a Friday, AI is always there. And it will always answer your questions and continue to answer your questions and your layered questions, giving you the ability to use it as a sounding board and, again, have those eureka moments. So that's what I've been using AI for a little bit.
See, what I love the fact that you can drop spreadsheets into ChatGPT. That's probably the file type I feed it most. I love the fact that if you export analytics from social media, insight tools, social listening tools, keyword tools, that's when it does interesting stuff. I don't think you should be saying to ChatGPT, hey ChatGPT, give me a keyword, list of keywords. That's not it. What you want to be doing is taking real data and big heavy spreadsheets that would take a lot of wading through and say, here you go, now tell me stuff about this. And I find it's actually, in general, very good at doing that. I think that's one of its most interesting applications.
Anything that can eat up spreadsheet data is like it's gold dust for digital marketers.
Have you ever tried Google Analytics? I've not tried that, but have you ever tried kind of Google Analytics or Google Ads reports, feeding it that sort of stuff?
I've done some Google Ads reports. Always a little bit of bias in that, so you take everything with a pinch of salt. But I haven't done any Google Analytics stuff, but certainly Google Ads stuff, just because typically focus most of my attention in on Google Ads itself.
You do.